Change your mind, change your money, change your life. I am Coach Rob Lee Simmons, the host of this podcast, and let me be your tour guide to greatness. Doing any better, I would be you. Welcome to the Greatness Academy podcast. I am here with Mr. Justin Lee. He is the founder of Quantum Senses. I'm super excited to lock in and have a good conversation with you, but welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I appreciate it, man. Happy holidays and Happy New Year, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we had a good little conversation right before we started, but just tell the people a little bit about yourself, man.
Yeah, so my name's Justin. I grew up in Sea Pleasant, Maryland. So I'm a local, to the DMV. By trade, I'm a aerospace engineer. I graduated from Tuskegee University, and that's where I started my career as an engineer working with the Air Force. And I started down at Eglin Air Force Base. We were doing a bunch of cool, weapons testing and explosives and bomb integration on a bunch of, cool jet fighter aircrafts. And I was blessed, recently to have the opportunity to move back home, to Maryland. So here back in the DMV, working with the Space Force at the Pentagon, and started my company in 2021. And we've got an assistive technology product that's being serviced and fielded across the country. And we're leaning into our second feature film titled Plight, which is coming out January the 17th. So just excited to be here and looking forward to what 2026 has to offer.
Yeah, man, you got a really big 2026 coming up. And then I just love your entrepreneurial spirit because, you have the entertainment side and then again, you have the products. Like, how do you manage your time when you look at such a broad platform of gifts that you have?
Yeah, man. I mean, for sure. Like it's a lot of prayer and meditation, and working a 9 to 5 is, I mean, at the Pentagon it's intense. Probably getting up at like 5:30 in the morning each day, and I try my best to make the most of the time that I have. So when I have downtime, it's like, let me try to focus on something else so I can be more efficient and optimize, the time that I do have. And then in most cases, putting in, 12, 13 hours, because you got to come home, then you got to cook for the family, then you got to eat, then you probably have meetings, and then you're responding to emails. So, yeah, so it can definitely be a challenge, as far as, balancing time, but you try to make the most of the time that we do have, and not to just like aimlessly just, not occupy the day, try to maximize it to the fullest extent.
Yeah, definitely. And let's talk a little bit about the talents though. Let's talk to Justin Lee, the filmmaker, the director. What made you kind of lock in and say, hey, film is the route for me?
Yeah, so to be honest, I mean, I still don't really see it as that. I know that, God's given us, certain gifts and certain talents. And a lot of these, stories and these film projects are just based off of, reality, to situations that things I may have experienced, people that I know may have experienced. And, I had I would have, these vivid dreams and, vivid, kind of creative things coming to me, like in dreams and visions. And I felt as though God was, compelling me to try and make them a reality and try to get those stories and those narratives out to people. So people can actually see, hey, these are some of the real issues going on in the world. And, a few years ago, we did our first project, titled Turning Point. And I don't really have acting background or, directing background at all. So it was just a lot of, on the job, training and asking questions and, doing a lot of research and YouTube homework, trying to figure out how to make these things happen. So now we're in our second project, and I'm excited.
Yeah, that's like, like military style. We do a after action review after the first thing that we do. We kind of use every moment as a training moment. In making a second film, what were some of the bigger lessons that you learned from the first film that made the second one smoother?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing is, you got to have a team of people that you can trust and that's reliable. You know, the first project, the production company, they were great. T Productions, they brought a massive team with them. You know, as far as the sound engineer, the grip, and the gaffers, and all these things. But in the second project, it was more so kind of a la carte thing where I had to start kind of putting together and kind of compiling kind of like our own team. So that was, the one thing that I learned as far as, being able to network and communicate and articulate, what your needs are and what the different aspects and the different fields that are required for your project. And then, kind of pulling those professionals together and conveying the vision for the project and kind of letting people do what they do best.
No, I like that. Hey, let's talk about Turning Point for a minute, right? I think even in watching the trailer, I didn't get a chance to watch the entire movie, but that will be the project for tonight. I thought the level of storytelling just in the trailer, that you had a vivid picture of the message that you wanted to put out to the people. Can you tell the people what is the movie about, and then why should they watch it?
Yeah, for sure. So the movie Turning Point, it's a faith-based project. It's about a young man, coming of age, and he faces, adversity and trials and, different circumstances, as he's going through life. And some of the guys that he meets, they kind of make different decisions that take them down, alternate paths. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but in the end, the story and the motivation is to share that regardless of the circumstances and trials that people may face, but that your faith in God and the Lord can help you overcome those trials. No matter how tough things may seem, or whether the odds, are stacked up against you, but that your faith and prayer can help you overcome any of those challenges. And so to me, that's the motivation that we want to share. And that's why people, should, watch the movie because, it's 2026. Some people I just went to a funeral, just yesterday. People are losing loved ones. Some people have like lost their jobs due to economic hardships. We look at the current administration, people are going to food pantries, they can't afford, the basic necessities of life. But the message that we want to convey is that regardless of those situations, that your faith in God and prayer and having the right people around you can help you overcome any situation that you may face.
What drew you to create your first movie as a faith-based movie?
I mean, so to be honest, I can't really even take the credit for it. All of these ideas is just godly, inspiration. And I just believe that it's just the grace of God that allows us to pull these things off, but my thing is that it's a close story to me because, the title of the project is Turning Point. It's not the Charlie Kirk, turning point. This was an actual turning point, which is a support group, that I was involved in. And so, you have people with, different challenges, whether it's, substance abuse or, eating disorders or emotional instability with anxiety and stress. So, as I was in that class, for like a couple years, it really taught me a lot and helped me, get my life back on the right track. And so, so to me, when I was having these visions and God was giving me these dreams, it's like, let's create something that people can relate to and something that's, that's real and that's something that's tangible. And so, faith and prayer, that's a daily part of, my life and my family's life. So, it makes it easy, to tell these stories because it's something that's real. It's something that I've experienced. It's something that other people I know around me have experienced. So it's just a matter of, just getting the story out there and, getting the truth out there about a lot of things that people are facing on a day-to-day basis. So, it's not hard because we're not, making up these fictitious, characters and stories. These are things that happening, on a day-to-day basis. So it makes it easy.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the talent in the movie. How, for your first movie, and this is just I've seen different perspectives from different filmmakers. How was it for you to get the right talent in the movie to portray the vision?
Yeah, so I mean, like it was I was just thankful, because the you go through these like the casting calls. And so, I really didn't know what to expect because it's my first project. I'm completely green. I'm like, how do you even get people to audition for you? Like, where do you host the auditions? How do you do this? So, as I'm asking questions, people was, sharing different websites and different tools. And so, you put the information out there and, within like the first hour, I probably had maybe 10 people, respond and say they wanted to audition. And I mean, some of these people, they went to like Duke Ellington, School of the Arts,
Yeah.
had, some people, one guy, he was from New York. So he was a professional actor already. So he was actually catching a train, into DC for auditions. Another guy was, he was like catching flights, from Ohio. So to me, it made it easy, and it's like, I wasn't, I'm not a professional actor. I just go off of what I see. And these performances, people, they're crying, like, easily, like just like while saying the monologue, and they're very passionate and driven about what they're doing. So I'm like, whoa, like I'm just impressed that you guys are even expressing interest in doing this project,
Yeah.
so it really wasn't hard, man. I mean, I had, myself and, I had a few people on the panel, just kind of, watching the monologues. We probably had maybe like 60 or 70 people audition. So I was just amazed that people were just gravitating towards the project. So it was just a really fun experience.
Let me ask you this though. I think this is like one of the very interesting things in film is when you see filmmakers go from the first movie to the second movie. I want to talk about the second movie, but I want to ask like did you have higher expectations for this movie coming out? Do you have higher expectations from the first one?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, from my standpoint, because you get the first project, you get it out the way, okay? So now, you go back and you look at it and you say, okay, what could I have done, or what can I do differently? Number one, the first project was, it was primarily consisted of like a black cast, which is great. But when you start to transition into like a second project and you start to try to find distributors, and you have to market and advertise, and try to engage different networks, you have to start to open up, your options and the demographics that your projects can appeal to,
Yeah.
So the first project, you say, okay, well, hey, well, this is primarily a black cast, shot in an urban environment. Okay, great. Now, how can we take that to another level and have a project that's more marketable? And now you're more so engaging, more of a white audience, or more of like an Asian or Hispanic audience. So you say, okay, well, now we need to have more diversity for the cast, because we want to now appeal to different demographics outside of the black community.
Yeah.
So although the project is applicable, and talks about some issues that we're experiencing in the black community, now we want to open it up, so now we can tap into, different markets and different, just different opportunities. So that's one thing that we definitely, had to focus and kind of hone in on, as far as, just having more of a diverse cast or diverse production team, and just, having more in-depth, conversations about socioeconomic issues, racial discrimination, or even mental abuse, and those type of things. So how can you kind of, you know, do more of a deep dive on more social issues, and not just something that's like, comedy and drama and, just very, very kind of surface level, but how can you take things a little deeper?
Yeah, so we got Plight coming out soon. We're working on a premiere. Tell us a little bit about it. Walk us through it.
Yes. So Plight, it focuses on the lives of, of four individuals. These four individuals have, different backgrounds. They're black. They're four black men, but their ages are varying. You have one guy, he's a teenager, in high school, living in a single family household, and he's having to go through a lot of, mental and verbal abuse, by his mom, which is crazy because, I mean, kids are going through that stuff all the time. Another gentleman, he's been working, in a school, for about 10 years. And the city, they have budget cuts, so this guy, he gets fired from his job. Obviously, we know the impacts, that could have on a family. You may have some financial goals, but you have, some setbacks because the city, is deciding to kind of cut funding in areas. Another gentleman, he's in his like, mid-career, like in his he's a 40s, and he's thriving and excelling in his office, and he's overlooked for promotional opportunities when it's given to one of his colleagues that's probably less deserving, of the opportunity. And, the last gentleman, he's having difficulty with affording health care for his sick wife. So, so we're just kind of tackling and, focusing on some of these issues that people are dealing with, on a day-to-day basis. And just once again, using those vulnerabilities and these guys using, their faith to kind of corral each other and be there to support one another, during those trying times.
So tell me, what was your favorite part of, I'll even say from the writing to, about to release the premiere, what was your favorite part of the making of this movie?
Yeah, I mean, like one of my favorite parts is I really like the location scouting piece. I mean, like we're filming in churches. Like one of the favorite, like a restaurant. There's a restaurant scene, and it's like one of my favorite restaurants. I go there for my birthday, and I know the owner and everything.
Yeah.
And, we go to this restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant, he's like, "Hey, Mr. Hollywood." He called me Hollywood, so it's like, it's cool that, you can actually, go into these like locations and go to these establishments, and they're actually like, filming movies, like not just something that you're seeing on like TV, but it's like you're going there when the restaurant is closed. You got people walking around. They're like, what's going on? So like that to me is like real cool because that's not something that you do on a day to day, and when you see movies on TV, you're like, how are they like filming in restaurants and filming in like these, like, these locations? But, that's another aspect of, the film and production that people, rarely get to experience. So in order to do that, it's like, I just really have a good time, just trying new things.
Yeah, and I would imagine you enjoy the art of filmmaking, but do you know there's also a business aspect to it too? So like, do you think that filmmaking is art first or business first?
I think filmmaking, I think it's definitely a art, first, but there definitely, has to be some business, decisions that are made. I mean, obviously, you want to put out like a high quality, project. You don't want something of like, low caliber, low quality. And I know I mean, we both see them, on TV. You're like, oh, that production is very low budget. But I think there's a difference between something being low budget and then also being like low quality. You could still have a small budget, but still put out a high quality product. But I mean, obviously, when you're putting together like your budget, when you're looking at, the equipment that you may have to rent or the equipment that you may have to hire folks to bring. I mean, a lot of those are business decisions, and a lot of times, my projects have been, self-funded, so we're independent. But, if you have, different investors, for your projects, or if you have different partners that are willing to put up, financial or non-financial resources, to me, that's another aspect of the business side that can now, help you increase and kind of expand the creative art side of things. If I only have $100 budget, maybe, we're filming a project in my living room, but if you got $100,000 project, it's like, okay, now we can go to the Waldorf Astoria, and now we're filming in the lobby of the Bellagio Hotel. So it's like you want to use you want to be creative, but there's also a fundamental, business aspect to it as well, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. As a, I would say you're seasoned now, after finishing the second film. For somebody who is inspiring to get in film, young filmmakers, what are some advice that you would have for them? And maybe give me one lie that's been told to young filmmakers that they should know about.
Yeah, I would definitely say if this is something that you want to do, I mean, just get involved. I mean, and a lot of times, find a mentor or, get involved with the local group. You can even, go to church. If you go to church, they may have like a video production, where they're doing like streaming, for a service, get involved. If there's like a drama department, you know, like get involved and just try to learn, and soak up as much, information as you can. I mean, even some people that want to start off, later that may be, in their 40s or 50s, it's never too late to follow, your passion and your dream. But I would say get involved, even if you're not getting paid, what you're learning is you're learning the craft and you're educating yourself. And then you're also able to network and build relationships that can translate into other opportunities, once you start to build your resume. One of the lies that people say, that I would say, hey, you got to get paid in order to, you're going to make a lot of money, doing like movies and, things of that nature. I'm not going to say that you're not going to, succeed and, make money, but these things take time. So if you're jumping into that industry and you're immediately thinking that, okay, hey, I'm about to be rich and I'm about to quit my job, over just this one project, that's a lie. A lot of times people are spending and investing years and years. Like one of
Yeah.
the actors in our project, his name is Zaire. And Zaire, this kid, he's like 6 years old. You know what I mean? Like 7 years old. And, he rehearses lines. He knows the lines, he knows how to deliver them. And he's been doing this for like some time, so it's like, you're not just going to just jump out there immediately and just say, okay, I'm about to make a boatload of money. I
Yeah.
believe it could happen, but, like anything, it takes time in order for those things to happen, really.
Yeah, for sure. Let's transition. Let's transition into the entrepreneurial journey. You got a couple of products. You say you got a couple of products, right?
Hmm.
That you're working on and some release. So first, let's talk about them. What would you like the people to know?
Yes, we have quantum sensors. We have an assistive technology. We call them readers for your ears. It's called ear acoustic headphones. And these headphones help enhance sound and the quality of sound. So if you have, friends or family members that are, struggling to hear, or they're on the verge of, having to buy, like a $6,000 hearing aid, or you have children that are struggling in the classroom because they have low retention rates because of their inability to stay focused and locked in on the teacher. We have an affordable product that's like helping like thousands of people like across the country already. And so, this was inspired by one of my friends. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he was struggling, to hear, and his wife would complain about the TV being too loud. So, the innovation, of this product is it helps enhance sound. It is affordable. It's green friendly. There's no electronics, no wires, no batteries. And, it's our first, we've done studies at the University of Maryland, College Park, studies at Winston-Salem State University. So this is like a scientifically, proven, product. It's taken time, to develop it, but, we've sold, nearly 1,000 units, and we're actually transitioning into the second, variant for it, in 2026. So, we're just keeping the innovation going, whether it's through, movies or, focusing on enhancing the five senses. That's what quantum senses is about. It's on, enhancing the five senses, whether it's through entertainment or through innovative products. And we want these things to be affordable and something that's readily available that can help people and can help, improve their quality of life. So that's kind of what we're aspiring to do. And, through film and through science and engineering, that's just one of the primary mechanisms that we're able to kind of do these things.
No, that's absolutely amazing. Funny enough, I talked about my time in service and starting to lose my hearing a little bit. So that is like I'm the target audience, right? And you could probably even hear it in my voice. I just recently learned the reason why I talk so low is because I sound loud to me, but it's not projecting.
Hmm.
So I can hear me, but nobody else can hear me. And to me, It's fine, but what made you become intentional about initially investing in time and energy into this product?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, so I think, around COVID, I think this that COVID was, it was kind of like a transformational, opportunity for people because, people didn't expect to be at home for so long, And, one of my goals and, I'm thankful for my engineering, background. The thing is, I've been working for the government, for about, 16 years, similar to the time you've been, serving our military. And so, my thing is there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of, fluctuation, based on the economy, based on, the administration. And, to me, I don't really want to, put my family's hands in the live in the, put that decision in the hands of like the government
Yeah,
or any organization that can decide whatever they want to do, just randomly, So, I prayed and asked God, I said, Lord, I said, man, I need a retirement plan. I need a transition, And so, he gave me, some ideas and refresh, my memory, brought some things back to my memory that I've started, but may not have finished. And so, that's really been, kind of my focus since, 2021. It hasn't been an easy process at all, because
imagine.
it's a lot of trial and error. You try to find different mentors and you're trying different concepts. Coming up with prototypes and you got to find people to manufacture the product or, it's a lot of learning curve, even in regards to the film, like
Yeah,
how to navigate the marketing and distribution, like where do you get the resources from to execute these things. But I think that we're finally starting to hit our stride now, and just really looking forward to the future. But definitely that financial independence and not putting your future in the hands of others was definitely something that I did not want to do.
yeah, for sure. Let me ask you this question. So I try not to trip anybody up, but a lot of times you have entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs who can become successful in different ventures. My question to you is, what's your relationship to fear?
I think my relationship to fear, I think is one of those. I think is it's a thing that'll push you, as far as getting out of your comfort zone. When I say fear, like my fear would be, you know, working for the government for another 30 or 35 years and not knowing the god-given potential and the talent and not really tapping into those things and being scared to try something new or being fearful that this may not work. To me that's the fear right there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, well, what if it doesn't work? What if I tried and it doesn't happen? But to me, it's like, well, what if you try and it does work?
right.
It's not really a failure, if you try something new, it's just another opportunity to learn and, and hopefully grow, just through different experiences. And that's, the type of person that I am. I don't mind, taking risk because at least you try. And if it doesn't work, okay, now I know what to do and what not to do versus, living your life kind of in a shell and saying, oh, okay, well, what if I did this? What if I did that? It's like, well, you had the opportunity, just give it a shot and you never know how things will work out.
No, I love that answer. That's exactly real I was alluding to that I should have threw the alley oop to say people of your caliber genuinely have a not necessarily a disassociation of fear, but really is more relentless. It's like I'm more afraid to not do it than to do it and fail,
For
right?
sure.
Because how I look at it, feel and this is kind of something that I preach during my financial counselings, essentially is you have to have a balance of fear because how I look at it is I'm not afraid to make mistakes because when I'm in 10 years, when I'm standing on a stage telling people about my success, most of that's probably going to be about where I failed at,
Yeah.
right? Because that shows the triumph of the success. Success is not a overnight thing. So I think it's And it's like, who knew in the setup, but I just like, I knew it was going to come out that way. Like fear, like there's no fear. You got to put your head down. But that is just kind of part of the process. As an entrepreneur, what was the one time where somebody told you no and that moment changed you forever?
I would. So when we first started filming Turning Point, we went through like there were two production companies. And so the third production company was a company that actually, helped us execute the project, but the first two companies, things didn't go as well. And, one of the guys, he's like, well, I don't know if we could do this and I don't know if we could do that. And it was very discouraging because, when you're trying to, execute a plan and you got goals on how you envision things and seeing things being played out and things not going the way you may have wanted it to. So it may not have been a direct no, but there was definitely opportunity to kind of shrink back and say, oh, okay, well, hey, like maybe this isn't the thing that I thought it was going to be, but yeah, that's why, like, once again, I think you got to have the right people around you, that's going to encourage you and give you motivating and, positive, messages, to kind of give you some assurance that things are going to work out. And though, even though it may not work out the first time, that isn't just an opportunity to kind of shrink back, but you gotta dig deep and, kind of keep pushing.
Yeah, man.
So it wasn't like a direct, like, no, you're not going to do this. But there was opportunities to kind of be like, man, maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And I think we wound up filming, the project, and it's like, man, this did not look right at all. It's like, this is not looking like a movie, so it's like, okay, do we want to go back to the drawing board, or, do we want to kind of pack up and go home? So you gotta dig deep and, keep pushing. I mean, as you know already.
Yeah, that's it, man. I heard you say this a couple of times. I think it is very important. And I just want to hear your perspective. But networking, how important was networking to your journey with the entire business?
Man, it is everything because you don't, it's like you never know who you might meet that may have something for you, or and I mean, not to say that you're engaging and talking to people just to get something out of it. It's like you genuinely, want to establish kind of like relationships. You want to establish relationships with people. I mean, just, meeting you, through Daya, you guys both have, military background, just talking to you, I have, I'm a civilian, but I have I work with people in the military, and you just never know how the relationship, what may manifest out of it.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's something, they may need something from you and you may need something from them. And so, to me, the networking piece is like vital. Like I tell this story, my wife, one of her, best friends, they're into like movie production, and her husband, he's like a score. So he does like all the music for like these $1 million projects. And so when we first started with the audition casting, they said, hey, well, we want you to meet this girl because she does audition casting and she could probably help you. So she told me about this website called Backstage. And so I was like, okay, cool. She kind of walked me through it. I went through Backstage, I set it up. And for Turning Point, this is when we got like a bunch of hits, in like about an hour. And
yeah.
then come to find out, it was like maybe like a month or two later, the young lady had passed. And
Wow.
so it was like, it was crazy because I'm like, man, if I would have never like met her, then I probably would have never even known about Backstage. So I wouldn't even have had any idea where to start as far as doing like audition casting and all these other things. So it's just a testament to show you that, the networking and the relationships that you can build and learn from people is vital, because somebody could be here today and then they could be gone tomorrow, or I might be able to share an encouraging word or share some information with you that, launches and catapults your career, into the stratosphere, just from a 30-minute conversation,
Yeah, man.
So it's like, you never know how, those opportunities and those relationships, can help, build and support one another. Because at the end of the day, this is when you to start talking about your purpose, and you start talking about, why are we here divinely. And to me, that is to uplift one another, is to build and encourage each other. If you have goals and dreams, one of my goals is to try and help you be successful and in any way, shape, fashion, or form, whether it's, giving you a pat on the back or saying, hey, man, it's going to be all right. Or whether it's me giving you a phone number to make a business call or something that can help you put food on the table for your family. So, that networking, it's not just, okay, what can I do for this person or what could they do for me? It's about how can we, genuinely, love one another and support each other and help, each other reach our God-given potential for sure.
Struck another question in my head. Like through your journey, you said you everything is just you're such a positive person, and I can only imagine how you handle challenges. But I kind of want to hear what some of those challenges were. All the way from the movie, even through where your acoustics, where you're trying to get it off the ground. What are some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you get through those challenges?
Dealing with different personalities,
Mm,
okay, so you have, different people from all different types of walks of life. Everybody has certain agendas or people they may have preconceived notions about what they think, the filming process is going to be, or people are very can be very opinionated, at times, so it's like, okay, some of the challenges can be, okay, how do I get, this person and this person to work together, even though they hate each other. It's like they might have had some words that were shared, off camera, but now the camera is on and we got to, make this thing work. So how do we do that? So it's a lot of prayer and it's a lot of just, asking God for like wisdom on how to deal with people. But another one is, from a business standpoint, how do you take these projects if you've invested 50,000 or you invest $100,000 and now you've got the project. It's like, okay, now how do I market and advertise or find different distribution opportunities so I can recuperate, my investment, so I have more return on my investment based on, what I paid out, thus far.
yeah.
So now it's kind of navigating some of those challenges as far as how do you, network and how do you work with different distributors, so those are some of the challenges, I mean, even, from a personal standpoint, how do I do better with like time management, because obviously, you're working, 40, 50 hours a week at the job. So then, then when we go and do these projects, it's not like we're doing these on like a weekend, this is like, it's like you take like 2 weeks off from work, you're putting in like 12, 13, 14, 15-hour days for, 12, 12 days out of those 14. And then you're like, okay, oh, well, oh yeah, my wife and my kids, like my family life, it's a balance, so those are some of the challenges as well. Faith and prayer, because these things can be difficult. And then we're not even talking about, things going on in my personal life, things that I might deal with or things I might be frustrated with, so it's kind of like a constant, juggling act of, trying to keep things not just afloat, but moving things, in a positive direction while also, trying to maintain and keep your personal life, and your sanity, all at the same time. So it's definitely a challenge, but with God, all things are possible.
Absolutely. Hey, so we definitely gonna close up real quick, but before we do that, I want to give you an opportunity to just kind of shoot a message of positivity to the listeners. You may have a seasoned entrepreneur. Again, you may have filmmakers. You may have someone who's interested in getting into entrepreneurship. What are some, positive messages and words that you can give to them to keep them going, motivated?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I would say number one, make sure that whatever you're passionate about, the things that motivate you, the things that excite you. So, like, whatever it is that you're passionate about, don't worry about the money. The money is going to come. The money is going to be there. But if you're passionate about something, and you're actually making meaningful impact on people's lives, to me, that's more important, than the money. Because people, they have money, but they still be sad or they work 40 years. Now they finally got a bunch of money, but now they can't even enjoy it because they got all these issues with their health. They can't really do and be active as much as they want to, but they got money. But at the end of the day, they're not really happy. So I would say for those aspiring, entrepreneurs, focus on something that you're passionate about and that really brings you joy and really helps you, make a difference in the lives of people. And then secondly, I would say always like put God first because things are not always going to be easy, whether it's your professional life, whether it's your career, whether it's your business. There's going to be some adversity. There's going to be times that you want to give up. There's going to be times where you're going to be like completely clueless as to what you're supposed to be doing next or what you should do next, man. But if you put God first and you pray and ask him for help, like he'll show you and he'll lead you down the path that you need to be successful. So that's one thing that I aspire to do and just want to encourage everybody to, it's 2026. It's a new year. God's got a lot of good things, planned for us. So just, stay focused and stay committed to thriving and being successful and it'll all work out.
I love that. And before we get out of here, please, let's get your socials. Let's get all the links,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it's coming out, where to find them. Let's get all that.
Yeah. So you can follow us at Plight_film on Instagram. We also have Turning Point Film on Instagram. Also Earcoustic on Instagram. It's EARCOUSTIC. Quantum Senses. We have like a YouTube channel. So you can check out all of the trailers, all of the cool acoustic commercials, all the fun and exciting things that we've got going on. Go to YouTube and type in Quantum Senses, LLC, and you'll find me on there. And, we're on Facebook at Earcoustic. We're also on LinkedIn. My profile is under Justin Lee on LinkedIn. We also have like a TikTok. It's on Quantum Senses, LLC on TikTok. So yeah, be sure to follow us. You can send me an email if you have questions. The premiere for Plight is January the 17th. It's at the Brandywine Escape Theater in Brandywine, Maryland. We got a red carpet premiere at 7 o'clock. We've got a panel discussion where we'll be talking about some of these issues. Then we're going to get into the movie. It's about a 2-hour-long project. If people have a business and they want to, advertise their commercials for their products or services, they could shoot me an email at quantumsensesllc@gmail.com. And, we obviously have earacoustic headphones for sale. We're on eBay. We're on Amazon. But go to the store. It's www.theearacoustic.com. And you can buy yours today. We ship all over the country. So we try to make it as easy as possible. But Robert, man, I appreciate you, man, for blessing me with this opportunity to be on your show and, wishing you and your family much success into this new year.
Definitely. And Justin, truly appreciate you for sharing your time and experience with us on the Greatness Academy podcast. We say we win when you win, and we want to thank you for being a winner.
Amen. Thanks, brother.
All right. With that said, we are over and out.
Thank you for joining the podcast. And remember, change your mind, change your money, change your life. We out.